So today's video lesson comes at the request of a number of UIcollective.co community members and watchers of prior videos who have left comments and questions in the comments section, where we're going to build a small storefront using some set variable interactions and conditional logic, while also utilizing a ton of different local variables as well, where the user will have the ability to add a specific number of items to their cart. When they've maxed out the number of items they can add, they get served a small snack bar, which they can remove, and also the numbers in the cart will adjust with it. It's a great lesson today. We will be using some components from the UIcollective.co design system. So if you're looking for a design system or want to follow along with us, I'll leave the link for our design system in the description below. Let's get started. So I've gone ahead and just prepped 3 image variants. So you have a white t-shirt, black t-shirt, and a beige t-shirt. Now let's start building our little wireframe. Let's bring in a desktop. Let's just call this Storefront. And let's bring in our images. So we got our whites. Let's copy and paste. This will be black. And this will be our beige. And let's just make sure spacing is consistent. So let's add some auto layouts and then set a gap variable, something like 64. There we go. Let's then bring in some text. So let's say this white t-shirt. And it's set the price to, I don't know, something like $100 USD. Let's set this to our heading large, and then this one to our body large. Let's add some auto layout. Apply a gap variable, let's say of 8. Set the fill. Hug. Hug. This should be set to hug as well. There we go. Hug. Beautiful. And then let's add some button icons to add and remove one of these t-shirts from our cart. So let's look for our button icon. There we go. Let's set this to, we'll keep this as our primary, but let's change this to our add. There we go. And then let's set this one to our subtract fill. Perfect. And let's just set this to our outline, just to offer a little bit of differentiation. Beautiful. And let's then, actually won't group them together just yet, but let's just move them all the way down. And the reason why I didn't group them together is just because we're going to add some of the same interactions to our pluses, so it's just easier to select them all at once. And let's go with our beige. Perfect. And so we've got our basic storefront here, and now let's add a little pop-up for a cart. So you might click a cart icon, and then your cart would appear on the right-hand side. So let's go ahead and add that. So let's add a frame. So my cart. Let's add a little bit of, let's bring in our key line actually. HR. There we go. Beautiful. Let's make this positioned. Again, doesn't need to be the best UI for this exercise. Just make sure everyone has the fundamentals down. And let's set this to our text body. Oops. What am I doing? Wrong. Our body large, excuse me. So this will be our subtotal. And let's just set this to $100 for now. Again, we'll add our variables soon. Subtotal. And then we want counts for each of our individual t-shirt items. So let's start with our white t-shirt. Our white tee. Let's make this a little bit smaller. Body medium. Set this at 0. Actually, we'll set that at 1 to start. And let's go with our black tee. This down. And then our beige tee. Let's also go with our, let's bring this out actually. Sorry, now I'm just being picky. Let's also go with the shipping, which will be a flat rate of $20. And then let's also go with taxes, which will be, let's say, 13% of whatever our subtotal is. So we can just leave this at, I don't know, $5 for now, because again, we haven't added our variables yet, so this will all change later on. And let's finally add our total. Total, we'll set that at 500. Again, this is going to change. And then let's bring a button at the end just to polish things off. And let's just say checkout. Perfect. So now that we've got our basic prototype up and running, or built, excuse me, let's look at adding our local variables, which will help make this interactive. So now let's look at adding our local variables. However, before we do that, one thing I forgot to do is add the little cart icon in the top right. Let's set that to 25 by 25, make it a little bit bigger. And then our badge icon to let the user know, not our badge icon, excuse me, our badge component to let the user know how many items have been added to their cart. However, one problem is that with the Figma's current state of variables, when we're working with a symbol of a component with this, like this, with a text or content property, excuse me, we're not actually able to add variables to this label content property. So what we actually need to do is detach our component. Again, it's never a good idea to detach components, but for this exercise, if you are working with really complex prototypes that will be using variables, you might need to. So we're going to go ahead and detach that instance for now. So let's then start adding our local variables. So the first one we're going to do is for the badge. So let's add a Boolean variable for our badge. And we're going to set that to false to start, because when you first enter the storefront, you're likely not going to have any items in your cart. So you don't want that counter to show right away. So it's only going to show once we start adding items to our cart. So, which is why we set our Boolean variable to false, which won't show it from the get-go, but if we were to set it to true, it would. So that's why we're going to set that to false. Let's also create a number variable for our item count. We'll set that to 0. A number variable for our subtotal. Number variable for our white T count. Another one for our black T count. Another one for our beige T count. We won't have one for shipping because that will be a flat rate, but we do need one for our taxes, and then another one for our total. Perfect. So let's then go ahead and start applying them. So let's select our subtotal and apply the subtotal number variable. So I can see that's set to 0 because our subtotal is currently set to 0. If you wanted it to start at a certain number, so say you did want it to start at 100, so no matter what happens, is maybe you might have like $100 down deposit on something. I don't know. You would just simply change that to 100, and that's where it would start at 100. But because you're going to start off with 0 items in your cart, we're going to keep that at 0. So let's close this. We'll set this to our white T count. This one to our black T count. This one to our beige T count. This one to our taxes. And this to our total. And just for consistency, let's actually remove that $sign. And then let's go ahead and let's add the text property for item count. So again, set to 0, but we also want this to not show right away. So we need to apply a layer variable for our badge set to false. And because it's set to false, look what happens when I click it. It hides right away. So when we start building out our prototype and adding the interactions, we're going to set the variable to true upon item click. So there we have all of our individual variables applied to the elements that we need to make our prototype interactive. And next, let's look at making the prototype interactive itself. So now let's make our prototype interactive. So let's start off with, and actually what we're going to do is let's rename this to our cart. And then upon click, what we want to happen on a click, we're going to open the overlay, which will be our carts. Let's add a quick background and make it come in from the top right. And let's also add a close. Let's make that a little bit bigger, 25 by 25. But then on click, we're going to close the overlay. So let's just do a quick check on this. There we go. So I can see that I have our cart appears, and then I can hide it as well. So what we're going to do is let's set our variables to change our subtotal, our taxes, and our total based on when some of these are added. So I'm just going to select each of our add icon buttons because we can do it at the same time. It saves us from having to do it individually. So let's add an interaction that's going to set the variable. So one thing to note again is that these are each priced to $100. We're going to set the subtotal variable to subtotal plus 100. And let's just do a quick check. Always check your work as you go. So add it once there, and once there. And I can see that our subtotal is now 300. So let's then keep going down the line with each of our variables. We're going to set the variable with our white tees. Oops, we won't do the white tees yet because we're doing it all at a time. So the white tee, black tee, beige tee, I'll have to do individually for each of the buttons. But let's do our taxes, which will be our subtotal times 0.13, so for 13%. And then let's set the variable, our total, to our subtotal plus 20, so for our shipping, and then plus our taxes. There we go. And let's just do a lightning quick check again. 1, 2, and 3. So I see 300, shipping at 20, our taxes at 39, and our total is 359. So you can see that math is working. Next, let's add the counts for individual tees. So it's just selecting this individual. Let's collapse these. Let's set the variable, our white tee count, to white tee count plus 1. Let's also do it for our black tee. Set the variable, our black tee count, to black tee count plus 1. And then for beige as well, set the variable, our beige tee count, to beige tee count plus 1. And let's do a quick check. So 1, 2, and 3. I can see that 1 T was added for each, and the math is the same as well. Not done quite yet, because again, we want to set the badge to true and then change the item count in the badge based on how many are added. So let's select each of these again. Let's set the prototype. So what's in here? That's mixed, so that's just for each of the individual T counts. So let's then set the variable on click, way down at the bottom, what do we call it? Our badge to true. Oops. Let's just move that to the top. And then we also want to set a variable for item count to item count plus 1. And let's move that to the top as well. Now, let's preview that. So hit that once, I can see that's added. So the badge appears because we're setting the Boolean variable to true. And that goes up by 1. Same with our black tee, same with our beige tee. And then when I click this, I can see 1 is added for each. And I can add more as well. So let's say 2 black, or 3 black now, excuse me, 2 beige and 2 whites, and everything adjusts really nicely. So that's looking really, really good. But next, let's add some conditional logic, which might set caps at the number of items that we can add to a cart. So now let's add some conditional logic that will control how many of each of the individual items that we can add to a cart. So maybe it's part of an exclusive release merch drop, something like that, where you can only add 5 of each variant to your cart. And I am actually noticing a little bit of a Figma bug when I was just doing some testing. So let's highlight this together. So if I hit each of the individual add buttons, I can see we just have our set variables, but no conditional logic. So that's for our white tee, our black tee, and also for our beige tee. When we start adding some of our conditional logic and especially create the Boolean variables for each of our individual add buttons, you'll see what I mean. So what we want to do is when each of these items is added 5 times to our cart, we want to actually hide the add button. So let's create some Boolean variables for each of our add buttons. So our white add button, set that to true to start. Let's also do a black add button, set that to true to start. And let's do a beige add button, and we'll set that to true to start. And then let's go ahead and apply these items. So let's go with a white add button, just connect the element with the variable, our black add button, and then our beige add button. And let's see if I can spot that Figma bug that I mentioned. So as you can see, all of a sudden what Figma decided to do is add some conditional logic. And this is just for me testing earlier on, just to make sure that some of the math was right and some of the logic actually worked. So what Figma decided to do is, even though that conditional logic was removed, is just bring it back. So I'm just going to remove that, and I'll go through that process with you together now. So we're going to add some conditional logic that states if our white tee count is equal to 5, we want to hide this button here so the user can no longer add any more white t-shirts to their cart. Equals to 5, we're going to set our white add button from true to false. So let's do a quick preview of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now that add button is hidden. So let's go ahead and do the same. And let's just see if Figma also decided to add some conditional logic. And they did as well. So always be careful around Figma bugs like this. I have been noticing a lot of times with prototyping that they do tend to just add some variables back to your logic here that you might have taken away. So if something's not working, always double check that you don't have these phantom variables coming back. So let's do it again. So if the black tee count is equal to 5, let's set our variable, our black add button to false. And let's do the same with our beige tee as well. Set some conditional logic that if our beige tee count is equal to 5, equal to 5, then our beige tee count, our beige add button is going to be set to false. So let's just do a lightning quick check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's hidden. I can see that our badge is at 5 as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Hidden. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hidden. And I can see that all the item numbers in our cart also adjust as well. Beautiful. So next, let's look at actually adding an interactive snack bar that's going to let the user know that there is a cap on each of the individual t-shirts and how many you can buy so that they're not confused as to why they can't add more items to their individual cart. So now let's add some functionality that when the user can no longer add any more items, each of the individual items, to their cart, a snack bar will appear letting them know why, so they don't think it's a glitch in the site or something like that. So let's go ahead and pull in our snack bar. And let's set that to maybe error. Again, the snack bar here is from our UI Collective.co design system. Let's hide the link, and let's change it to the title to no more items available. And then description to each customer is limited to 5 units per. Just a quick explainer. So what we want to have happen is that if we open up our prototype here, so that when the white tee count is set to 5, this white add button is set to false, so it's hidden. And when this white add button is set to false, we want this snack bar to be set to true. So essentially, when our add button's hidden, our snack bar appears. So let's add a local variable for our snack bar. Snack bar, and we're going to set that to false to start because, again, we don't want it to show right away. And let's apply that. So let's set that to false. And now let's add some prototyping elements. So let's add some conditional logic that's going to state, let's open this back up, that when the white add button is set equals false, our snack bar, set variable for our snack bar to true. And let's just present that. Fit to screen, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I can see that the snack bar appears. However, a small problem is that our snack bar never actually goes away. If I click on the X, I click on the snack bar, it's just always there. So we need to adjust that. So let's go back into our local variables. Let's toggle on that snack bar, and let's make it so that if you click anywhere on the snack bar, that it closes. So add interaction that states that set variable on click, the snack bar to true, or to false, excuse me. There we go. So on click, that snack bar is being changed to false. So let's then go ahead and re-hide that snack bar. Oops, where am I going here? So let's toggle that off. And now let's do a quick check. So let's reset. Let's present it. Let's fit to screen, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I can see our snack bar appears. And when I click on it, it's hidden. So let's go ahead and repeat that same process for our black, tea, and beige. So let's prototype. Let's set some conditional logic. Let me just open this back up. Set some conditional logic that if the black add button is set equal to false, or add an action for our snack bar, or set the variable for our snack bar to true. There we go. And always check your work as you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That appears. Click, and it's hidden. And lastly, let's do the same for our beige. So we're going to add some conditional logic that's going to state that if the beige add button is set equal to false, then what's going to happen is that we're going to set the variable for our snack bar to true. And let's also try this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Our snack bar appears. Click, it's hidden, and I can see that all of the individual numbers in our cart adjust with it. Beautiful. So there you have it. That's how you create a small storefront using your variables. One thing I will leave for you to do is to add the variables and interactions for the subtract. So if you want to subtract an item from your cart, how will everything adjust? Again, if you have any questions with that, feel free to leave those questions in the comments or join our UIcollective.co Slack and we can solve it together. Hope you enjoyed today's lesson. And here's your reminder to sign up for UIcollective.co. You'll get access to all of our current free design system training and much more, including our free UIcollective.co starter kit, which has been downloaded thousands of times in the past couple of weeks. It's perfect for you mapping all of your color variables, color tokens, and much more. Again, this is a free template. And we also do have our design system now available where you get access to 30 plus components across light and dark theme and a complete design tokens map as well. So we did the work so you don't have to. And again, this is now available and that link will also be in the description. Hope to see you online.